Imagine buying the house of your dreams, only to discover that it hides terrible secrets and malevolent entities. This is the story of a sinister real estate agent who sells cursed houses, guaranteeing absolute terror to the new residents. Are you ready to hear about the soul broker? Press play and join us. Press Quex. Emma and Mark were eager to buy their first house. After months of searching, they found a charming property on the outskirts of the city, sold by a friendly realtor named Mr. Smith. He assured them that the house was perfect for starting a family, with a price that seemed like a real bargain. The house was spacious, with a beautiful garden and a cozy porch. However, the neighbors looked at the couple with suspicion as they moved in, whispering among themselves. Emma noticed but decided to ignore it. They finally had the house of their dreams, and nothing could ruin that moment. In the first few days, everything seemed perfect. But soon, strange things started happening. Mark heard footsteps upstairs when he was home alone. Emma felt a dark presence watching her while she slept. Objects began to move on their own, and voices whispered unintelligible words at night. One night, Emma woke up to Mark's scream. He was covered in sweat and said he had seen a shadowy figure beside the bed. Desperate, Emma decided to investigate the house's past. She discovered that the previous owners had mysteriously disappeared, and everyone who had lived there before them had met tragic fates. Emma and Mark decided to confront Mr. Smith. When they arrived at his office, he greeted them with a cold smile. They tried to ask about the house's past, but he dodged the questions, saying they were just old stories. However, Emma noticed something strange, an old diary on the realtor's desk. During a distraction, Emma grabbed the diary and ran out. At home, she and Mark read about a ritual performed in the house decades ago, meant to imprison souls and strengthen the power of a demon. Smith was part of a lineage of realtors who, under the facade of real estate sales, conducted these rituals to feed the malevolent entity with new souls. Desperate, Emma and Mark tried to leave the house but felt trapped. The doors locked themselves and the windows wouldn't open. The spirits of previous victims began to manifest, begging for help and warning of the couple's impending fate. Nights became unbearable, with horrific visions and nightmares blending with reality. Emma found a secret room in the basement, filled with melted candles and demonic symbols. At the center, a large black mirror pulsed with a malevolent energy. Realizing it was the source of the entity's power, the couple decided to destroy it. Mark held a sledgehammer while Emma recited an exorcism prayer found in the diary. When Mark shattered the mirror, a deafening scream echoed through the house, and the shadows seemed to stir violently. They felt a wave of malevolent energy dissipate, but knew they weren't safe yet. The entity, furious, sought revenge. Mark was thrown against the wall by an invisible force while Emma struggled to keep her focus on the prayers. They realized that destroying the mirror wasn't enough. They had to confront Mr. Smith to break the curse definitively. Emma and Mark returned to Smith's office but found it empty and ransacked, as if someone had left in a hurry. However, a clue led them to an old abandoned chapel outside the city. Upon arriving, they discovered an altar with photos of all the victims, including theirs. Mr. Smith was there, performing another ritual. Enraged by the intrusion, he summoned the entity to destroy the couple. Mark physically fought Smith while Emma recited the final prayer. With a stroke of luck, Mark managed to take control of the situation and pushed Smith against the altar, interrupting the ritual. The entity manifested physically, a horrendous creature made of shadows and hatred. It attacked Mark, who fought desperately to defend himself. Emma, with tears in her eyes and a trembling voice, continued the prayer, now directing it directly against the entity. At the critical moment, Smith tried to flee but was grabbed by the entity, which dragged him into the mirror that formed on the altar. Emma and Mark, exhausted and wounded, watched as Smith was devoured by the entity, his screams echoing in the chapel. With Smith destroyed, the entity vanished, but not without leaving its mark. The chapel partially collapsed and Emma and Mark barely escaped. They returned home, but the feeling of oppression remained. The ritual had been interrupted, but the curse was not completely broken. The visions continued to haunt them, and the feeling of being watched never disappeared. Emma and Mark knew that as long as the house existed, the curse would persist. They decided to leave everything behind and start a new life elsewhere. But the terror they experienced left deep scars. Even far from the house, Emma and Mark could never fully escape the fear. Every shadow seemed like a threat, and every sound a foreboding. The story of the soul broker became an urban legend, but for them, it was a reality they could never forget. Do you want part 2 of this story? Leave your comment. If you have a horror story and want to see it published on our channel, send us your story.